in the
This
Pacific.
meeting is being recorded.
Good morning, everyone. I'm glad to see you. I have to flip screens to see everyone. Good morning, Al. Good morning, Michael. Good morning, all the people who I haven't said good morning to. I want to start with a reflection on last week. Last week, the topic was spiritual barometers. And the idea of a spiritual barometer, I'm going to just do a quick review, is that there are some things that sometimes are annoying and sometimes are not annoying. And
Right.
depending on the day, the thing can be annoying or not. And we had the lovely examples from Maria of when she peels hard-boiled eggs. And that sometimes she peels a hard-boiled egg and it doesn't come off very easily, and she laughs. And sometimes she peels the hard-boiled egg and it doesn't come off very easily, and she gets frustrated. And Maria talked a little bit about how she's able to use the hard-boiled egg peel as a way of knowing what her mood is, like a spiritual barometer. And I couldn't think of a good example to help everybody know what their own individual spiritual barometers are, because you might not peel eggs, and peeling eggs might not sometimes be frustrating or not. And I couldn't think of an example. And I thought of two examples after the service ended last week. So example number one of a spiritual barometer was me last week. I was in a bad mood last week, and I thought the service went terribly. I realized that the service is also for me a spiritual barometer. How kind I am to myself after running the service is a way to know, am I in a good mood? Because when I'm in a fine mood and the service doesn't go well, they can't all be perfect. I will castigate myself, and sometimes the service doesn't go well, and I'm fine with it. And then I thought of a great spiritual barometer for you. Everybody ready?
Yeah.
Let me look at your faces. Hello, faces. Here's a spiritual barometer. I want you to look on your screen, on your Zoom screen, of all the people who are here. I'm going to try to bring up on the laptop, so it take a moment. There's lots of different people. There are people who are on the Saturday service. I want you to think of the person who annoys the crap out of you. Like there's a person in one of these boxes right now who might just frustrate you sometime. And you think, oh, I really hope that that person doesn't open their mouth today. And that's a spiritual barometer for you. The spiritual barometer is how annoying that other person is, because there are times when that person opens their mouth and you think, oh my God, I wish I weren't on this service at all. That person won't stop. And then there are days where that person's doing their thing and you think, oh my God, there's Jimmy. Jimmy's just doing their thing. Isn't that quaint? And so how annoyed you are by that person on the screen today is not as much about that person as it might be about what your mood is. And to finish this up, the thing about a barometer as opposed to a thermostat you can adjust. A spiritual barometer, if you find yourself in a poor mood, it doesn't mean you have to fix it. You can just do, it's okay to not be okay. Any questions, thoughts, comments? I just babbed on for, I started our service with a very frontal non-interactive. It's okay to be in a crappy mood. It's okay not to be okay. And we're going to start today, our interactive part, with this. I'd love to hear from you. It's okay not to be okay. It's okay for me to be in a crappy mood. I'd love you to interpret that phrase any way that you feel like saying it, that's resonant for you, that will help you to know that it's okay. So Alex, would you lead us off with the one you posted?
It's okay to be in a crappy mood.
And if you agree with that, let's have an amen.
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 And any objections to that? Is it not okay to be in a crappy? It's okay to be in a crappy mood. It's not okay to act out and take a shit on people. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
It's okay to be in a shitty mood. Just don't shit on people. Don't quote. Let's not have that be like the thing we quote me on. Anyone have a different version of that they want to say aloud?
Crappy poo?
Crappy poo. It's okay for crappy poo to happen, Meg.
Do I have to be in a crappy mood?
You do not. It's okay not to be in a crappy mood, Bob.
Oh, okay, good, good.
How about shitty?
It's okay to not be in a shitty mood. I think maybe I'm missing the thread there.
It's okay to be sad.
Amen. That's what I'm going
Amen.
for, Ray. It's okay to be sad. What's another one you need permission to remind yourself it's okay?
Oh,
It's okay to be happy when other people around you aren't.
Oh,
It's
that's a
okay
good
to be
one.
happy when other people aren't. Amen. What else do you need a reminder to tell yourself so that you do?
It's okay to be disappointed.
It's okay to be disappointed. Can we get an amen?
Amen.
It's okay to be impatient.
It's okay to be impatient. Let's have an amen on that.
Amen. Word.
It's okay to be quiet.
It's okay to be quiet. Ironically, you had to say that out loud, but it's okay to be quiet.
It's okay to be human.
Amen.
Yeah. It's
Can I
okay.
hear
Oh, yeah.
Go
Yeah. It's okay to color outside the lines.
It's okay to be different, unique, weird. It's okay. Yeah. Well, let's take all those and let's have a giant amen. We're going to move ourselves. We have a program aligned today, but so let's move ourselves to a quick round of gratitude. Let's just take a minute to be thankful. At this exact moment, I'm okay. In fact, I'm a little better than okay, and that's lovely. Let's take a moment just to be grateful for everything we have that's right in front of us. Take a moment to be grateful for whatever you see in front of you right now.
grateful for all the people.
Yeah. Gratitude for gratitude is a beautiful thing.
Gratitude for gratitude.
And we're going to quickly switch our attention over to the people who are in need of some extra prayers and love today. Maria, can you read us that list?
I can. These are the people to whom we are sending light and love. Joe and Ken, Sheridan H., Greg, Linda Wright, Monica, Al, Donna, Lisa, and Sam, and Kelly Hunsaker and husband. If there is another person in our community to whom we can offer light and love, please put their name in the chat and I will add them to the list in the clubhouse. And for the people who aren't named, but who are in our thoughts, we send them light and love as well.
Let's take about a minute just to hold all these people with love. And Wendy, can I ask you to, can I spotlight Wendy? I don't know how to do that right this moment. Hold on one second. Spotlight. There's Wendy. Hi, Wendy. Wendy, I met at, Who Says Nothing Good Comes Out of a Funeral. I met Wendy at a previous to a funeral, but then did her father's funeral. And Wendy offered to do a presentation, which I thought fit in so well with our themes here over Saturday service. And I love Wendy is among the few people who just started coming to the Saturday service and immediately jumped in with 2 feet. And I really appreciate that. Wendy, tell us a little bit about the talk you want to give to us and help us all to learn and be better peoples. That's a good
Yeah,
intro. Okay,
there you
go
go.
ahead.
Thank you. So I'll start at the beginning. I'll make this part short. I grew up in an environment of a lot of conflict in my home. And so when I finally graduated college and moved out and got my first job, I thought, that's it. All of that is behind me, and life is going to be great now because I can just find the places that are peaceful. So I started my first job, and the woman next to me was crabby 24/7. She was always in a bad mood, constantly criticizing me. My boss actually opened the door from her office, came out of her office, and yelled at me for laughing. And the look on my face was just utter shock. And quite honestly, I quit. Not long after that, I quit and found another job. What I decided was, clearly I just made a mistake and I'm going to go find work nirvana. I never found work nirvana. I think you can all imagine. I never found life nirvana where we all get along and there's no conflict. So that got me down a path of trying to learn how to deal with conflict because I was definitely the flee type. As you can imagine, I left that job right away. And so I started by getting my master's specializing in conflict resolution. And then I took a very intensive 5-day course at Sac State where we practiced 8 hours a day managing dealing with conflict. And that was really helpful. And I used it right away in my life. But I always felt like there was something missing because I always talk about, getting to yes. And getting to yes seemed to me like always getting what I wanted, but it wasn't really addressing conflict in a mutual way. So a few years ago, I took a class from Pema Chodron, who is a very well-known Buddhist nun. And she talked a lot about ourselves and our own role in conflict. And that's what got me down the path of kind of putting together this talk and really just trying. It's really helped me tremendously. And I thought I just wanted to help as many people as possible. So that's what I've done. And that's what we'll talk about today is a mindful approach to conflict resolution. And I know in Rabbi Brian's weekly services, we talk a lot about conflict and our own reactions and things like feelings. And that's what we'll be talking about today with kind of a scientific bent.
Great.
We're very excited. We're here.
Yeah.
Talk to us,
Okay.
Wendy. How do we do this?
All right, shall we get started? I will go ahead. So the way it's going to work is I do have some slides because I need the visuals to walk you through it, and then I'll turn off some slides and we'll have some exercises as well. Definitely, you guys are a great interactive bunch, and I really appreciate that. So I'm going to start, before I share my first slide, I'm going to ask a question. And that question is, how many people have experienced a conflict right now? It can be a little conflict, like just irritated with someone on the road, or a big conflict, or have recently experienced a conflict. And you can raise your hands or your electronic hands.
I think that's going to be everybody. It looks like most people, Wendy.
Yep. Okay.
You with me all the time.
All the time. There you go. Yeah. I couldn't believe it yesterday. I pulled into the parking lot and a guy made me move my car and I got mad. And I thought, wow, really? I got mad over that? Okay. So I will now start with our first slide. The commitment that I have made is that my goal is that if you understand the phases of conflict, and we talk about our role in conflict,
A little bit.
you can recognize when a conflict is happening and have the skills to do something about it early on. So the first thing I found was I actually Googled phases of conflict and I found out, oh, somebody's already done this. They did this in 1968 and they put it in a book and we've all forgotten about it. So I'm going to take you through these phases and I'll give you what we call the fables of the full dishwasher and the manager. So whether it's at work or whether it's at home, dishwasher one is something that still happens in my house. The first phase is latent conflict, where you begin to see there's a possibility for conflict. And so the example that I'm going to use, just a minute, I need to move a window. There we go. Is you've noticed that the dishwasher is empty. Or the dishwasher is full. I apologize. You walk by and you open it up, or there's a little sign on it, and you're like, oh, the dishwasher is full. Okay. And then you go about your merry way. In the case of work, this was a real life example someone gave to me. You have a new manager. The manager pulls everyone together and says, I don't like the way things are going. I actually got a new manager once at work. He met with me and he said, and I quote, I don't like anything you're doing.
Ooh.
Hmm.
So you can imagine, right?
Hmm.
What are your physical feelings when you hear this?
Anger.
For me, it was tension. My shoulders got tight. My breathing got shallow. But nothing's happening. I just have a feeling that something's happening. So that takes us to the next phase of perceived conflict. Well, now we are in a state where we figure our wants or needs are likely to be thwarted. Our goals are likely to be thwarted. So in the case of the dishwasher, it's now been 24 hours. The dishwasher has not been emptied. You're pretty sure it's somebody else's turn to empty the dishwasher, whether it's a spouse or a roommate or children, but they're avoiding it. You notice maybe they're using the same dish over and over. They DoorDash. In the case of the manager, he now meets with you personally or with your team and he says, I got it. I have new goals for the team. And he lays out the new goals. And you're like, okay, he said I didn't like the work I was doing and he's given me new goals, but he hasn't given me new work. Again, that tension ratchets up in the body. Same with the dishwasher. All right, it's been 24 hours. I have a decision I may need to make. I'm getting tired of the dishwasher being full. Do I do it? Do I say something? What should happen? So now we move to felt conflict. Now it's not only perceived, but it's felt and recognized. So in the case of the dishwasher, you might now leave that person a note, like a sticky note on the dishwasher. Isn't it your turn? Or, I'd make dinner, but I don't have any dishes. In the case of the manager, he now pulls everyone together. Time has gone on, and he's criticizing, or she is criticizing everyone for not meeting those goals. They didn't change the work, but they changed what they wanted the outcome to be. You have a real felt conflict of like, I'm not going to win here. I'm not going to be successful. And that's kind of happening in both cases, which is if you blow up over the dishwasher and finally say, are you ever going to open the dishwasher, empty the dishwasher? You are engaging in conflict. And that takes us to manifest conflict. And people act differently when a conflict is actually happening. So it gives examples here of aggression, apathy, sabotage, withdrawal, or perfect obedience to the rules. So I fall into the last one. When something gets tense and there's a disagreement, I always go back to the rules and I get very fact oriented because I think that will align us all. But it doesn't for two reasons. Not everyone's as big of a fan of this approach as I am. And my rules could be my rules. They may not be your rules. So we still have a conflict and people react different ways. You've probably been in situations where the other one is when I get in a conflict with my husband, I get real quiet because I want to make sure that I use the right words to not make it worse. But I didn't know there's this thing called the silent treatment. New to me. And so he thinks my silence is the silent treatment when I'm just trying to figure out what can I say that doesn't make it work and worse, and my silence is making it worse. So in the case of the dishwasher, you're now angry at the other person and you finally say something. Are you ever going to empty the dishwasher? And their response could be, you know what? I'm really busy. Can't you just do it? Or it's not mine. I don't know why this is becoming such a big deal. And then it can escalate and it can move to, well, like, has anyone vacuumed the house? Is that ever going to get done? What about the sinks? Has anyone cleaned the sinks? And you can see how this goes. And I think we've all been there where you kind of walk away and you say, I have no idea how I got to that state. In the case of work, what happens in reality, and this is what happened in this case that I'm bringing to you, is people start talking behind the manager's back about looking for new jobs. And that's a real thing. And whether you're an employer, whether you've been a manager, whether you're retired or not, you've probably seen this at some point in your life where people are just like, I've had it, I'm done, I'm out of here. And the conflict aftermath, if the conflict isn't restored, it may explode again in a more serious form. So that goes to actually leaving the job. I actually had an employee recently I worked with who just got so frustrated he said something in a meeting because he was so upset, which was pretty unusual. In the case of roommates, I've had the situation where the roommate says, you know what, I think I'm going to go find my own place to live. So that's what I mean by the more serious form. It doesn't have to get to that stage, of course. My goal today is to talk about how we can recognize our feelings. What we've talked about a lot here is kind of recognizing our own emotions, what we can do about them. So here, my apologies, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to share out with sound because I want you to hear this. Can I have that capability? I do not. All right.
We can give you that.
Can you give me that? Tell me when.
Working on it.
Don't worry. I can do it a different way. So let me know.
Alex, any luck there? I don't have the power anymore to do that. Alex, are you able to? So let's go with plan. Wendy,
We're going to do plan B.
This could be a great setup where we have some tension right now rising. Yeah, no, it's not. And no, we can't seem to share it with sound right now.
Not a worries. I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, while I'm looking this up and I'm going to play it out, I'm going to talk about what I'm going to talk about. So Dr. Jill Bolte-Taylor is a Harvard-trained neuroanatomist. And if you're ever interested, she has this amazing book called My Stroke of Insight, where she talks about, I believe that's what it's called. She talks about walking through having a stroke. I got that right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. And so what I'm going to do is I rather than talking about her 90-second rule for emotions, I wanted to share it out and let her talk about it. So that's what I'm going to do. You know what? I can't share out sound, so I'm actually not going. I'm just going to talk about it. We're going to go with that. So hang on and
Hey,
I will
Wendy?
share back out. Yeah.
Can you tell us about the 90-second rule?
I'm going to tell you about the 90-second rule. So the 90-second rule is, there we go. Whoops. Okay. The 90-second rule is when you feel an emotion because something's happened, right? So something's upset you and you feel an emotion. And it can be anything. It can be happiness. Typically, though, it's anger, it's fear, it's what you would call an unpleasant or negative emotion. And what she discovered is the brain chemistry goes through your system. It's your hormones and the chemicals that go through your system actually create the reaction, and they flush through your body in 90 seconds. And she did fMRI studies to watch how this works in people. And what's important here, and I have tested this, is that when you feel a reaction to something, I got mad at that guy because he told me to move my parking. If I sat with that for 90 seconds, it left my system. Everything went down because the chemicals whooshed through and then they got a chance to dissipate. When I first heard about this, I was like, no, I can't possibly believe this. I definitely stay upset longer. So I practiced it. And in every situation that I would have in a strong emotional reaction, and I will tell you how well this worked. I got an email from a very close friend who the email went to all of us and it said, I've been diagnosed with a form of cancer and I'm going to have treatment. And I immediately got extremely upset and very anxious for her because I didn't know the end state. I wanted to know the end state. And so I thought, all right, this is the perfect opportunity. There is no way 90 seconds is going to work on this. So I sat there for 90 seconds and I allowed myself to feel whatever I was feeling without doing anything about it. I just sat with it. And sure enough, within a minute and a half, 2 minutes, I started to feel differently. And what I felt differently was that the feelings of fear and the unknown flushed out of my system. And what was left was love and compassion and ideas of how I could help her, even though I didn't live near her. And those were all so much more productive than those first feelings of feeling helpless. And it took, like I said, about 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And that's when I knew, like, no, this is actually quite real. So when does it not work? If you're interacting with someone and they're yelling at you or criticizing you, it's not going to work because you don't get a chance to get away, right? It's kicking off those chemicals constantly. So that's not, so that tells you if you're feeling that way, you can do something like, you know what? We need to pause. I understand you're upset. I just need to stop right now and take a break. And you can do the same if you're the one saying something like, I need to stop and take a break. And it's helpful. The other time that it won't work is, and this is the main thing, what I learned I was doing to myself. I kept spinning the same thought over and over and over. Instead of acknowledging my emotions and saying, this is the way I feel, I'd be like, oh my God, here I go again, anxious again. Oh, I can't believe this is happening. What am I going to do? I can't do anything. I feel helpless. This is so frustrating. Same could be true of anger. I am so angry at that guy for making me move my car. I'm going to go give him a piece of my mind. As long as you're doing that, you're recreating those same emotions, right? You're building up those chemicals. And those chemicals are now going back through your system again. And it's like this cycle that you can't get out of. And that's why the pausing is really important. Put your hand on your heart, acknowledge, okay, this is the way I'm feeling right now. I'm just going to sit with this. So now I'm going to ask the question, has anybody identified where maybe there's an example of this would have helped? Doesn't have to be a big thing. Like I said, it can be the guy in the parking lot. Any experiences you had where this might have been helpful or could be helpful in the future?
I saw this act out not too long ago, Sunday, a week ago. The four of us are in the minivan. Annie and I are in the back seat. Emmett and Jane are in the front. And I'm not going to say who was driving, but one of Emmett or Jane were driving, and they got too close to a mirror on the passenger side, and it hit the mirror and knocked it. It has that setting so it doesn't break off, and the other cars also went to that setting. But there was a definite reaction, and the lack of reaction from everyone the driver got very upset, very upset. And it took, and I didn't, we hadn't had this talk yet, so I didn't know this, but it was about 90 seconds of the driver being very upset. And then it passed.
Hmm.
That was it.
Yeah, it's something to practice with this week for you all when you run into these situations. See, sitting with it like I did, right? Like, do I believe this? I don't know. I'm going to test it out myself. Okay. So now we will go to the next screen. Oops. There we go. Sorry. There we go. Okay. So we've talked about mindfulness before. So we'll talk about mindfulness here. Mindfulness is the ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we're doing at the moment. The idea here, and I think we've, Rabbi Brian has his meditation times every day of the week on Facebook. What I'm introducing is that mindfulness helps us with conflict resolution.
Mhm.
So there's 3 parts of mindfulness. And the first part is heart, which is self-compassion. And we're going to practice with that next. And then mindful awareness is on the other side, which is noticing what's happening when it's happening. So what Rabbi Brian mentioned was like the perfect example of, okay, the mirror got bumped. We're having a reaction. I'm just noticing what's happening when it's happening. And the middle stool is practice. I say, meditation is great. If you don't want to meditate, that's also okay. There's still a lot of opportunities to simply be mindful, just to noticing what's happening, to slow yourself down so that when you get that physical trigger, you notice it. By the way, this was something new that I learned. I always thought it started in my brain. I had an emotional reaction and it went to my body. It turns out it's just the opposite. Science says we feel our emotion in our body first. It's those chemicals. And then it sends it to our brain and our brain goes, ah, and now it has a reaction. Now we have that reaction. And that's why noticing what's happening in your body is really helpful. So we can talk about, again, meditation. You can meditate if you like. It can be 5 minutes. It can be 20 minutes. There's no rules. You don't have to sit up to meditate. I'll meditate just in bed before I get up, just kind of slowing myself down because I wake up ready to kind of jump into whatever I'm doing. So I just take a little while and slow down, and it makes me ready for the day and lowers kind of my barometer. So if stressors come up, I have kind of an empty bucket to start with rather than a fuller bucket. You can also just have mindful moments through the day. Notice your responses. If nothing else, mindfulness is noticing your response. Okay. It's arguing with me.
Mhm.
Hold on. I'm going to
Yes.
stop sharing. There we go. And I'm going to there we go. Okay, I want to share out one more thing. I will go over and then we'll do an exercise. After that, we'll talk about self-compassion and we'll go to that. I just wanted to share out, I have these things called, a friend of mine introduced them to me. They're called Calm the Chaos cards. And what he does is when he gets triggered, he had a tendency to say things that made the conflict worse, escalated things. So he bought these Calm the Chaos cards. And when something triggers him, he just walks away from what was triggering him. Hang on. Or he waits until it ends. If it's a work thing, he'll say, all right, I'll wait till it ends. He walks out of the room where he had the trigger, he pulls out a card and he reads it. And this is an example of one of the Calm the Chaos cards. There's other cards like this. I just liked these. And this was the one I randomly pulled out about focus on what you can control and let go of what you cannot. What is this really doing? Reality is it takes about 90 seconds to read it.
Hmm.
And that's really what it's doing. But it gives you an opportunity to take that mindful moment. It's a good practice. So you get in the habit of like, I should probably go read a card. Okay. We're going to talk about self-compassion because self-compassion is good for you. So again, I said I'd mention the science here. Kristen Neff is an associate professor at the University of Texas, Austin, and she conducted the first academic studies of self-compassion. And she's been studying self-compassion for 20 years. So she wrote this article, The Chemicals of Care, How Self-Compassion Manifests in Our Body. And she said self-compassion isn't just an idea, it actually manifests in our body. When we soothe into our own pain, we're tapping into the mammalian caregiving system. And one important way the caregiving system works is by triggering the release of oxytocin. So research has shown oxytocin increases the feelings of trust, calm, safety, generosity, connectedness. It facilitates the ability to feel warmth and compassion for ourselves. Cool thing is, oxytocin is released with a long hug. Your body doesn't know if someone else is hugging you or if you're giving yourself a hug. So you can give yourself a hug and you will actually create oxytocin to help calm yourself down. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like you to think about a time when you had a difficult moment. It can be a little teeny difficult moment. I don't want anything huge, not a big long argument or something life-changing. But think about some small difficult moment. And now put a hand on your body. You can put your hand on your heart or your hand on your abdomen, or you can give yourself a hug. And feel that emotion in your body. Where is it? How does it feel? Is it in your chest as you're feeling that difficulty? Is it in your neck tension? Maybe you feel it in your stomach. Your back gets tight. Your shoulders may slightly go up. You may feel a little bit of tension just as you think about this difficult time somewhere in your body. And as you're doing this, ask yourself, what do you need right now? Do you need space, quiet, clarity, safety, to be heard or seen or respected? What is it that you need right now? And just see kind of what comes up from your body. What does it need? Could be even just a meal. Water. Can be something physical as well. And then ask yourself, how can I get more of that? Is there something you can do to get more of what you need? Do you need to talk to someone? Do you just need to ask for quiet or a pause? Do you need to ask just to be listened to without anyone talking back?
Oh, that's great.
Maybe you just need to make more time in your day or do less, say no to some things. So think about how you can make a plan to get those needs filled. And the other thing that I like to focus on is sometimes these big ideas can get a little overwhelming. Like, I don't know, man, getting my needs filled. That's a big problem. What's the one best next step? Just one step towards getting your needs filled. Doesn't have to be a big thing. Can I do one little thing that will work towards that way? Any thoughts? Anybody want to share?
Breathe.
Breathe. Yeah.
Going out and just looking at the nature. Taking a
That's
breath
actually-
of fresh air.
That's a great one.
Looking what?
Looking at nature.
I'm struck by
looking at
how much
nature.
slowing down is a part of it.
Yeah. Slowing down is a part of it, right? Gives us time to feel.
Mhm.
Go ahead.
Taking a deep breath and just doing it.
Maria says watching and listening to the birds. They have scientifically discovered that listening to birds reduces anxiety.
I've been on a pretty long journey of self-love. And when I really got it, it changed everything. And all of the things you're talking about, it's like, oh, yeah, that's all. It's, the self-compassion and the awe and love, all of that is it's just part of. And once I really got it, all my, maybe not all, but most of my conflicts or stray thoughts about other people changed.
Amen. Is that amazing? Thank you.
Hug my dog. That's one thing that helps.
Pets.
Yes.
Pets are awesome. I have actually, since putting this together, I thought, well, I should really practice what I'm kind of presenting here. So I make it an effort every day to go sit outside. I listen to the birds and I pet my cat. It makes a huge difference in my day of just slowing down and getting out of doing for just a little while.
Conflict.
But everybody's needs are different. Okay, I'm going to take you now to the next exercise. I wonder who this is.
Oh, I didn't actually say that. It might be Teddy Roosevelt. There are a lot of people it is attributed to, but it is not me.
Okay, but it
But
came
I
in
like
your
the quote.
email.
It did. I did write it, but it's not my quote.
Thank you. So I got this because this came in email from Rabbi Brian, and I thought this is it. The next step
Know that you
itself is compassion for others. And in the state of a conflict, one of the things I've learned is I have to get clear on what my needs are first, right? I got to get grounded to say, I'm in a conflict because my needs aren't being met. What need isn't being met? Okay, how can I get that? Great. Now I have to listen to the other person. And I'm a real fixer type. So I tend to listen and jump in with, oh, you can do this, you can do that. And that wasn't the listening I needed to do. The listening I needed to do was just
baby girl.
listening. So we will now go through our next exercise, and that is in compassion for others. So what I'd like you to do is think of a person outside of your usual group of people you interact with. So we don't want to make this super triggering. So think of a person who is part of your life that you have a conflict with. It could be a guy in the parking lot. It could be a neighbor. It could be somebody you don't interact with real frequently. What we want, again, is little small conflict. But if you think of a person that you've interacted with and think about all the things that you have in common with this person.
Mm.
So I'm going to go with my guy in the parking lot, and my guy in the parking lot, like me, works. And he has a lot of pressure to get things done. And he has a lot of rules that he has to follow about how he gets things done. This was at a car dealership. So he worked for the car dealer. And he has a lot of requirements. I'm sure he has time frames set. And so now, as I even think about this, I become like, oh, he is just like me. And so as I think about that, then what are those things, this person you're thinking about, what might be difficult for them? What kind of difficulties might they have? They may have illnesses. They may have illnesses with family members. They may have money troubles. Could have job loss.
Wendy, this sounds suspiciously like compassion.
Kind of, yeah, you know, it's imagine that. It's compassion. Exactly. But it's what's cool about it is it's an exercise so that when you want to be compassionate, when you slow down, you've thought about your own reaction, you've waited 90 seconds, you've thought about what your needs are, and now you're thinking about the other person and you're having compassion for them and connecting to them and thinking about what their difficulties might be gives you a different perspective on their difficulties in life. So when you have that conversation, you can, for me, I'm going to speak for myself, it makes me a better listener. So when my husband says, when I give him the silent treatment, what I'm doing is I'm actually going through all of this. I'm first calming down. I'm thinking about what is this that set me off? What need isn't being met? And then I think about, well, where is he coming from? Oh, that's really different than me. Well, I can have compassion for that. And then we're ready to go to our skills. So this is going to be another familiar thing to you. Rabbi Brian talks a lot about nonviolent communication. And so what we have here is nonviolent communication. I have summarized this. There, if you'd like, you can go to the nonviolent communication website and download the complete feelings list. A friend of mine who's certified in this told me the average person off the top of their head can name about 7 feelings. So I love the way they say, instead of good feelings and bad feelings, do you notice it's feelings when your needs are not met or satisfied, and feelings when your needs are met? It's not good and bad. When your needs aren't met, you have these unpleasant feelings. And let's face it, in life, we don't always get our needs met. And when our needs are met, those feelings we identify as being pleasant. And we tend to want to stay on the pleasant side. So these are our needs. If you're not good at identifying needs, this is a complete list and you can download it from the Nonviolent Communication website. And they're great to use to keep on hand if you're like, I'm not sure what I need. And there's so many more than I had thought, like mourning. I hadn't thought of I need to mourn, or I need to celebrate life, or I need creativity, or I need nature, or I need to play. Including notice physical well-being. Notice I mentioned like maybe I just need to eat, or I need to get up from my chair. Maybe I haven't had a good night's sleep. Okay, so you have now prepped your body and your mind to be receptive to some of the tools to resolve conflict. So the first one I'm going to introduce to you, I'm just going to introduce a couple. is finding what's below the surface. So you're ready to listen to someone and you understand your own needs. This example is simply of Susan and John working together. And Susan says, John talks too much in meetings. This can be anywhere, right? And John says, man, this group wouldn't move forward without my input. And so they're in conflict because John is driving Susan crazy. And she's worried everybody's going to bail from the group. And this can be in volunteer situations, it can be with family members. And John says, if I don't keep driving this, we're not going to be successful. But they have a common shared need. And it's not a want, it's a need. And that is that they both want whatever their effort is to be successful. And look, even below that, they need to be valued. And if you think about any conflict at all, isn't being valued kind of what's important to us every day? We all want to be valued no matter where we are in life. Now I'm going to take you to the next tool. This is called OARS, and it's a technique for communicating with someone. So you start by asking open-ended questions rather than, do you want me to do it or not? Probably would escalate your emotion. What did you feel like when I said that? Instead, what's that?
I said, fine with me.
If you ask an open-ended question like, what makes you feel that that's important? It's a different kind of question. So my husband retired a year ago and I'm still working. And sometimes that really grates on me. And so rather than saying like, the fact that I'm working and you're not is driving me nuts, the real answer was, the real question to him was, I said, what would you like your retirement to be like? So rather than me jumping to conclusions about, boy, I'm working and I have a list of honeydews. Instead, I said, what would your retirement, what would you like it to be like? So that I could hear what's important to him. And that opened up that compassion again and got me out of my resentment. And then affirm victories. It doesn't matter how small. I call them little victories. Anytime I move the needle, yesterday I wanted to pressure wash my entire patio. And I thought, I don't know if I'm going to have the energy to do this, the whole thing in one day. And so I said, yeah, I'm going to do it. I have these big concrete squares. I'm going to do it square by square. And so my goal was, I'm going to do a square. And I did a square and it was like, woohoo, I did a square. I can go inside now and rest. And then I can decide if I'm going to do another square. So whatever those little victories are, and I use this with my kids when they'll call and they'll be frustrated with something, and I'll be, again, what's the next one best step? And then you celebrate that, and celebrating gives you those more positive feelings we all like. And it also recognizes, oh, I'm on my way to meet my need.
Rabbi?
Yeah. That was odd. Keep.
Okay,
I
okay.
I thought I heard a voice.
I did too. Okay. So the next one is reflecting when someone talks to you, and Rabbi Brian, I think you've talked about this as well, which is when someone talks to you, and it's in kind of a tense situation or even not, it's always great to say, so I think I heard you say, or reflecting both sides. I hear you're conflicted. You're thinking this might be a good way and that might be a good way. And then you can go back to asking open-ended questions. And summarizing is, I think I heard you say, is that how you wanted to go with this? Did I understand you correctly? It's always, and again, it's part of that slowing down, right? And for me, since I'm a fixer, this was a real practice in listening to the end and then summarizing and pausing to make sure I heard what the other person said. But that keeps you kind of at that first phase of conflict, and then you can work towards resolution. Does this work 100% of the time? It does not. And the last thing I'm going to share is Hofstede's cultural dimensions. I just bring this up because one of the things to recognize is both we have country cultures, we have family cultures, we have organizational cultures. There's cultures in everything, and they can be different. And sometimes when you're in a conflict, it helps to pause and say, does culture take a part in any of this? Am I having a cultural misunderstanding? So I just put this up there to say some cultures can share power. Some are more authoritarian. That can be in any group. Some we're more individual in our American culture. Some are more collective. So one time I offered to buy gift cards for everybody in a group in Asia. Oh, and thank goodness a woman called me and she said, please don't do that. That will embarrass all of us. So this is just helpful to keep in mind.
Wow.
So to summarize it all, the idea is if you know there's phases of conflict, you can practice mindfulness to remember to give yourself 90 seconds to slow down, let the chemicals leave your body, then practice kindness to yourself, identify what you need. Practice the just like me exercise for others. And that's a great practice to do all the time, to get into the habit so it's reflexive. And then you have tools to help you have those conversations of listening, affirming victories, asking questions, and trying to get to what's underneath the surface. What does that other person need? And you can even ask that. What is it you need? Any thoughts? Helpful?
Well, I have a question. I find that fascinating that she called and said, please don't do that. That'll embarrass all of us. Did she give a reason why? That it would
Yeah, she did. In her culture, they only recognized groups, not individuals. So what we could do was send them all out to dinner together.
okay.
Gift
Thank you.
card as an
Yeah.
individual.
If you read the book Between Us, you will understand that much better. It was written by a woman that came to this country and she was from the Netherlands. And she talks a lot about the difference in our culture and the culture in the Netherlands. She gave a dinner party and it was a huge success according to all the Americans because they all went out saying, oh, that was wonderful, your food was good, blah, blah, blah. She felt horrible because in her culture, if you've given a good dinner party, you make arrangements to get together with the other person again. You
Oh.
don't recognize the
Wow.
individual for their great food that they prepared. This book is really
What's
good.
the name of the book again, please?
Between Us. And I can't remember her
down.
name because it's Dutch.
Thank you.
I'll look it up and post it.
I will hand it back to you. Thank you guys for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh my God. Great.
So,
Okay.
as
Thank
I'm
you.
trying to come back to the screen here, we have just about a minute, but is there a giant light bulb, an aha, is there a thing you're going to be taking with you that you can share out before we break?
90-second rule.
90
seconds.
90-second rule.
How about we all try that for next week? See if we can do a 90-minute timeout between this week and next week.
In 90 seconds.
90 second. No, I said 90 minutes. All right, that's that's a different game.
I like 97 minutes.
All right, you can do as you wish. 90-second rule. I'm gonna double down on asking open-ended questions. I seem to have forgotten that one, so I'm gonna try that as well. We are at a time boundary. Thank you, Wendy, so much for your preparation,
God,
for doing it for
great.
everyone.
Thank you, guys.
I
Thank
appreciate
you,
that.
Alex, for your help.
I'm gonna hit stop on the recording and then stop Facebook.